there's another ramification of what actually we're seeing. I hadn't quite thought of that, but I had talked about, and this had come up kind of recently in various subcultures on the internet. We're talking about there would have to be a wholesale and complete revolution against the 60s and modernism, and that's the only way you would see any major change happen in the course of things. And that at some point, like my argument was, that people will beg for order, and when they look for order, they'll have to look backward. And especially the more that you find people at like us nationalists, we take great pride in looking back at what we once were and saying we could do that again. We could be that again. And in fact, we could use such a thing and make it even more adaptable to our times, and therefore glorify the ways of our people even more, ennoble the way of our people. And a big part of this, I think, was taken from the intense pride that Jewish people take in their own culture. To the point that, I mean, there's even kind of like a joking aspect to it, and that we also see it in the comedy My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where every single word, no matter what language it's from, at some point goes back to Greek, according to Dad. That's genius. You know, that was a genius gag. That was a really, really good gag. The gag only works if one understands, like, that, oh, well, yes, you see, because when you're around a Greek community, they take extreme pride in the history of Greece and their contribution to history. So you see, it in one way we take it lightly, you know, that this idea of fundamentally nationalism, but really embracing who you are and the way that your people behave and what your own parents taught you and what their parents taught you, and that only makes sense in time and place where you are in your nation. That's now being embraced, but people they can't say nationalism. You know, they don't associate it with that it's real, that it's the only real thing, that all these other things are just social constructs. Marxism is a social construct. Liberalism is a social construct. No, actual market economics, so capitalism and nationalism are real. It's just that you do need ways of making sure that there aren't elements that use it kind of nefariously to do something cruel to the innocent. As Lao Tzu said, what was it? I just want for the knowledgeable to not be cruel. He wants for nothing. That's it. He wants for nothing. He just wants the knowledgeable to not be cruel. It was something like that. I'd have to look it up again. But of course, libertarians constantly cite Lao Tzu, because to libertarians, Lao Tzu was describing like something that it's like, this is an ideal mindset of a libertarian and a nationalist, like is Lao Tzu. You know, yeah. So one of the things I've been thinking about with people aren't getting the idea of Zionism as this form of now Jewish nationalism that's multi-generational. And one of the most important things really is certain repeated errors being made in various statements, even when somebody is like, they're critical in a correct way. Morally and factually, they're correct in their criticism of something that Israel's doing. But they're not getting, okay, they were there. Like, there's plenty of Europeans who moved there, but they were in the area. Like, they were in Egypt, they were in Jordan, they were in, they were in these countries. They didn't all just, after Rome crushed them, they didn't all move to Italy and then move to Eastern Europe. That's not what happened. They were spread out throughout the entirety of North Africa and into Iran. It's real weird that there's no reflection on the fact that no, they spread throughout the region, throughout the entirety of what we think of the Roman world and beyond the Roman world. Like, that's why there's Mizrahi and there's Sephardi, and there, Jews got all the way to Japan. Nobody's. It's like, I don't think there's a real weird misunderstanding about. No, and you all know we're from this one place. All of you know we're from this one place originally. We don't want to live all over the place and constantly have problems when we could have problems in one place. So I was thinking about this, and I was just like, and so the one of the things that came up is that, well, a lot of people are also then not dealing with, why is Hamas? Like, what makes them, like, not just the parliament of Palestinian political parties? People, why isn't it just supposedly just some parliament of, the Palestinians have their political parties and they have this parliament government that decides things. Why are there very, very few parties, it seems like? And when power switches, there seems to be it seems a big, big deal. And it's because, these are groups of people have taken on, this is a group of people that have taken on some of the worst ideologies in politics to speak for them. And one of the things is that what's kind of funny is how, in the long run, all these highfalutin ideals that at one time, remember, Jews were a major pusher of Marxism, pushers of Leninism. They were big thinkers in the sphere of socialism. Marx himself is of Jewish descent, but yet hated Jews, and felt that they were pretty much the key problem. That as long as they're still around, you're gonna have problems. The Marxists and Leninists and such, that a lot of people just have to deal with. No, at some point you're going to have to address that you're going to just have to address, one, the Salafist Islam that is so popular in that community, and then the fact that they politically believe in Marxist-Leninism. Without addressing those, that's it. They just die. Until you address that, they're going to just keep catching rounds, and nobody's going to do anything, because the rest of the Islamic world is now putting aside the Salafists, and they're trying to be like, yeah, this Marxist-Leninist shit is no, and that's also why they're going after the Muslim Brotherhood. And you're seeing the Muslim Brotherhood getting pushed out of Islamic discussions, and more there's fundamentally various state actions against the Muslim Brotherhood, because Marxist-Leninists, these various collectivists in this modernized Islam from the late 1800s and early 1900s is being extirpated, let's just say, by their own within the Ummah. And nobody can address that, because then you're discussing the realities of Islam. Now you're talking about real things. You're talking about absolutely real stuff. And the world of angry Islam and activists of the Western world goes back to the creation of the Salafists and Wahhabists. These are So without that cheap oil that we got because of the deal with such people, that you wouldn't have America as we know it now. We got so addicted to this deal for oil, as now that eventually we weren't valuing people's time in gold and silver, as is, the good way and the righteous way. We did the floating standard of oil, and you never knew you had to. You see, and that's why we had to get along with the world. Now as the world, we had to all get along, because nations can have gold holdings. The world had to, all work together for the oil, and so they were all driving cars in peace or something. Whatever it was sold to really the baby boomers, and it worked. The baby boomers did go along with the Middle Eastern wars, no matter what they wanted to say. They all highly and heavily benefited off of the wars in the Middle East over oil. There's never going to come a time where it's the baby boomers like, because of the Iraq war, my everything got so expensive and I lost everything. It's no, by the end of it, they have pensions. They're the ones who they have all the money. Younger people don't have the money. So, so they managed to actually reap the rewards of the planet. And then when you really look and you go, okay, well, so let's look at some math. Who rose into elite positions and wealth during this period of time of Imperial Americana? Oh, mostly women. And that's why it goes unquestioned. That's why having adult conversations and man mind about inquiring about such things, thinking about it like a man, you're not allowed to do that. You're just simply not allowed to do that. We all have to kind of go by, well, mom doesn't understand that. Grandma doesn't really understand that, but she knows George Bush was a bad guy. But they got a good job. And so it doesn't matter, understanding it in those terms, this idea of the oil wealth of the Imperial Americana. I like how Masamune Shirow came up with that name, the Imperial Americana. It's a beautiful name. But that's, this idea of having these dynastic presidencies so open of something that would be imperialist in at its basis. This idea that, no, you see, we put military bases everywhere, but in no way, shape, or form should this be understood as the thing that an empire would do, a burgeoning empire would. No, you silly Willy, your crazy ideas. So, there's no way out of this outside of Trump and the MAGA movement. And a lot of the young are really seeing this. They're really seeing, no, there's a bunch of people that know nothing other than an imperial period of time, that things were unbelievably cheap because of what was pretty much slave labor in China. And especially once you really start digging, you're like, this is pretty much slave labor. The way that they set these people up, and that a whole generation has ended up with nothing. They have no idea if they own a home or own property. It's all nominal. It's nominal ownership, the way that like the Nazis had it. And so, And now because of the taxation on a lot of businesses, you're at the stage of, this is, again, we're at nominal ownership. Even the United States is turning to something that is the Nazi economics, especially under Democrats. Too many, and so because this was discussed frankly and with candor, and also remember, a big part of what's happened with this concept of the new right are people that reluctantly were like, Well, I can't really argue with that. That is true. That is accurate. And it was the pain that comes with, there ain't nothing I could do about that other than tell other people. That's the only thing you could. There's nothing more American than that. That's our music. Ain't nothing I could do about it, but I'm going to tell you all about it. So, it's but what's happened is then there's a miracle, and the glory meets you because you've spoken the truth. That you have no power against it. You don't know what to do. All you could do is tell other people, oh my gosh, I have no power to change this. But what ends up happening? Other people also say in time, and I don't have power to change this either, but brother, I hear you. And that's the miracle that's happened with what is now throwing off the modern period, is people are hearing this is kind of miserable, and we have no power to change it other than to stop it completely. And that's where and a lot of the small thinking of black liberals and the white activist typist girls and stuff, it won't really matter. They're mattering less and less every moment. Lord be praised.